Hello and welcome to Torah Thoughts. The portion of the Torah that we read this week's Parsha, is Parshat Yitro. Yitro was one of 6 people who had the distinct privilege of having a Torah Parsha named after him. So who was Yitro and how did he end up earning this particular privilege? Well, Yitro was, first of all, he's known mostly as Moshe's father-in-law, but there's a bit of a background to Yitro himself. Yitro was he was an advisor to Paro in Egypt around the time that the decision was made to enslave the nation of Israel. But Yitro opposed it. He was against the decision, and because of that, Paro made a decision in Yitro's absence, behind his back, that he was going to execute him. He was going to have him killed. When Yitro got word that Paro's men were coming for him, he fled, and he wound up in Midian, where he became a spiritual leader. And when Moshe, years later, fled from Paro because it was discovered that he had killed an Egyptian who was beating a Jew, Moshe fled, and he also wound up in Midian. That's how he met Yitro, and eventually married Yitro's daughter Tzipporah, and that's how Yitro ended up being Moshe's father-in-law. Now, what happened was, Yitro, like I said, he was a spiritual leader, and they worshipped many fake gods. They worshipped idols, and at some point, Yitro became aware of the God of Israel. He became aware that this was the one true God, and he abandoned all of the other gods and worshipped Hashem. He worshipped the one true God. When did that happen? Well, it's exactly as God intended when he performed all the miracles in the Exodus from Egypt, right? When he brought the plagues and the splitting of the sea and so on. The purpose of that was to demonstrate that he controls nature, and word spread. Yitro heard this, and, well, as the Torah says, Vayishma Yitro, Kohen Midian Choten Moshe. Yitro, the priest of Midian, Moshe's father-in-law, heard, Et kol asher asa Elokim leMoshe, everything that God did for Moshe, Uli Yisrael Amo, and to Israel his nation, Ki hotzi Hashem et Yisrael miMitzrayim, that God had brought the nation of Israel out of Egypt. So that occurrence is what made Yitro say, "Oh my God! Wow! There really is only one true God. He controls nature." And he comes out to the desert to be with God and His people and with Moshe and so on. And he says to Moshe, "Ata yadati, now I know, ki gadol Hashem mikol ha'elohim, that God is greater, meaning God, the God of the universe, is greater than all the other gods, the fake idols that Yitro worshipped until now. Ki bedavar asher zadu aleim, through all these things that they schemed against His people, meaning that God brought all of the punishments against Egypt. They were all similar to what the Egyptians wanted to do to the Jews. The Egyptians, remember, originally said to throw all the males that were born among the Jews into the river. Well, they died in the sea. The Egyptians wanted to kill the firstborn. They wanted to kill all the babies, the males that were born among the Jews. Well, they suffered from the death of the firstborn, and so on. You can find many similarities of how the Egyptians suffered punishments that were similar to what they wanted to bring against us. And so Yitro saw all of this. He knew it was no coincidence. He saw that it was a manipulation of nature, and only the real true God can do that. And he decided, that's it, there's only one God. So Yitro spent some time with Moshe, actually gives him some advice, and then afterwards he decides to go back to his people. It says, Vayishlach Moshe et chotno, Moshe sent off his father-in-law, V'yelech lo el arzo, and he went his way back to his land. So Yitro decides, rather than staying in the desert and becoming one of the nation of Israel, he wanted to go back, and this is one of the few people who did this outside of the nation of Israel, who went back and converted Rashi says, he went back to convert his people, and not convert that they should become Jews, but convert in that they accept the concept of one true God of the universe, God of history. And it's rumored, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's rumored that the modern day Druze are descendants of Yitro, and they are exceptionally, amazingly loyal to Israel. But anyway, so Yitro goes back. So that's the distinction of Yitro. Yitro recognized exactly what the purpose of all of the miracles that God brought in Egypt, what that was all about. He recognized that proves that there's only one God who controls nature, controls the universe, and that's the only God we should worship. And as a result of that, not only did he end up having a parsha named after him, but what's in the parsha? This particular parsha that's named after Yitro contains remember I talked about a while ago that there are four events that shape history. Three of them already happened, and the fourth one will occur when Mashiach comes, and that was creation itself, the exodus from Egypt, and the third one that occurs is the giving of the Ten Commandments, God's revelation to the entire nation of Israel at Sinai. And this is what happens in this particular parsha, and that kind of brings together all of these three occurrences that happened. Again, the common thread being God's dominance over nature. He created nature, and God giving people free will. So here he is giving the Ten Commandments in front of all the people, the entire nation of Israel. And it starts off with, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, Asher hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibet avadim, who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. Now, God is talking to the nation of Israel here, and he's saying, I am the one true God who controls nature. And in what way does he say, I am the God who controls nature? He doesn't say, I'm God who created the universe. He says, I'm God who took you out of Egypt. Now that's a bit, again, that's a little bit unusual. When you say the God of it all, the God of the universe, you say he created the universe. Why does he refer to himself as the God who took you out of Egypt as opposed to the God who created nature? And that brings us to one of the proofs. There are two proofs, and it's found in this parsha actually, two methods of proving that there is a God. He is the God of Israel. He is the God of nature, the God of the universe, the God who created it all. And there's no other God but him. And one of the proofs is, Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Here is God talking to an entire nation. Now let's compare this to every. It's often said, and I've said it often, that Jews are not a religion. Judaism is not a religion. It's a faith. We are a nation who has a belief system, no doubt about it, but we're not a religion. Why is that? Why do I say that? Every religion has someone who brought the message, whether it's Buddha who brought Buddhism, or I wouldn't say Jesus, the apostles rather, who brought Christianity, whether it's Muhammad who brought Islam. Here comes not the practitioners, the founders of this particular faith, and tells you a story. So Muhammad tells you that Jibril, the angel Jibril, came to him and gave him the Quran. And he presents a book, the Quran. You could choose to believe it or not believe it. His story may be true, his story may not be true. Same thing with Christianity. The apostles claim that they saw Jesus perform all these miracles, that they saw Jesus rise from the dead. And then they come and they tell the people that they've seen it. You can believe it or you cannot believe it. And it's like, again, you move on to every religion. The founder of the religion has a story to tell. You believe it or you don't. You believe the book that he presents to you or you don't. With the Torah, it's different. It's not that Moshe came to the Jews and said, okay, here's my belief. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. He said this to the entire nation standing at Sinai. The entire nation witnessed this. Now, how do we know that it's actually true? Very nice. I can say, well, but how does that prove that it actually happened, that he said this to the entire nation? It's because the book itself says, this book was given to the nation, you experienced it. It doesn't say I'm the God who took the nation of Israel out of Egypt. It says, I am God who took you out of Egypt. The people that this book is being given to, those are the people that came out of Egypt. Now, you can't lie about a thing like this. For example, you have the United States Constitution. Let's take that as an example, okay? And we know that it was written in 1789. Well, if I suddenly came out with a constitution that no one ever heard of before, your parents never heard it, you never learned it in school, I'm saying you as an adult. First time I come out with something and I tell the entire country, here's the U.S. Constitution that was written in 1789. For generations, everyone has had this, and I give it to you. Nobody would believe it, because everyone would say, what are you talking about? I've never seen this before. My parents never told me about this. You can't give something new to a generation and tell them this has been around all along, right? So if it was any other generation that had received the Torah, they would never have accepted a document that says, your ancestors gave you this document. The very first generation that received it had to have been the generation to whom it happened, otherwise they wouldn't have believed it. And here they are. That's why God doesn't open up by saying, I am the God that created the universe. What, did they witness it? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But when he says, I am the God that took you out of Egypt, that refers to a personal experience. The nation, the generation of the nation of Israel who experienced this, they're the ones that it's happening to, and they can't deny it. They experienced it. So if it wasn't true, again, that generation would have rejected it. Nobody took us out of Egypt. So the generation that experiences it gets the Torah, and it opens up with the introduction is, I took you out of Egypt. So if that wasn't true, they also would have rejected it immediately. So here we have an entire nation that is witness to a phenomenal event. God himself comes before them, and it says in the Torah they saw it. God comes before them and says, I am your God. I'm the one who took you out of Egypt. Had it not been true, or had another generation have received that message, the Torah today would not exist. So that's one proof that the God that controls nature gave the Torah. But where's the other part, the other component, the God that created the universe? Now that God has introduced himself, okay, right? I'm the one. I took you out. You witnessed it. You're experiencing it. Okay. Then God says, and I'm the one who created the universe. Now, where do we see this in the Ten Commandments? Well, let's go down to the fourth commandment. Okay. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho. It says, remember the Shabbat to keep it holy. And this is interesting, okay? Well, first I'll read you the exact words. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Remember the day of Shabbat to keep it holy, or rather to make it holy, to sanctify it. Sheshet yamim ta'avod vasita kol melachtecha. 6 days you should work and do all of your, the common translation is all of your work. The word melachtecha, work, is not really an accurate translation for that. There isn't a word in English that fits it. I guess the best translation is your tasks, your chores. But we'll get back to the meaning of the word melachtecha. 6 days you should work, and 6 days you should work and do your melachtecha. V'yom hashvi Shabbat, the seventh day is Shabbat, l'Hashem Elokecha, for Hashem your God. Lo ta'aseh kol malacha, do not do any, again, malacha, which we'll get back to. Ata, you, uvincha, and your son, uvitecha, and your daughter, avdecha, your servant, v'amatcha, and your maid, uvhemtecha, and your cattle. Your cattle has to keep Shabbat? No, it means you can't have your animals do something on your behalf. So you can't hook up a plow to your cow and send him out onto the field. All right? V'gecha, and your convert, asher bisharecha, which lives among you. Ki sheshet yamim, because on 6 days, asa Hashem et hashamayim v'et haaretz, Hashem did, God created, he made the heavens and the earth, et hayam v'et kol hashabam, the sea and everything that's in it, v'yanach b'yom hashvi, and he rested on the seventh day. Now the word rested, again, you got to take it in context. God doesn't rest. Rest is for someone who gets tired and they need to rest. God didn't get tired. God didn't break a sweat and needed to rest. But it's rest in the sense that when something stops moving, we say it's at rest. God ceased from the activity he was doing. Al kain, therefore, berach Hashem et Yom HaShabbat vayikadshehu. God blessed the day of Shabbat and sanctified it, made it holy. Now, where is proof of creation in there? Well, let's first of all get to the word melacha. The reason we do not work, we do not do certain things on Shabbat, is it's similar to, I'm sure if you have children, or if you remember when you were a child, they had a Thanksgiving play or some other play where they would recreate some sort of historical event. That's how you remember the event. We remember an event by playing it out. In this case, what are we playing out? 6 days we do our tasks, on the seventh day we don't. We're playing out the events of creation. 6 days God did all the creating, on the seventh day he stopped. But, again, that doesn't prove it happened, or does it? what is it that we don't do on Shabbat? It's not that we don't do something difficult, because God didn't do anything difficult when He created the universe. It's we don't do anything that involves creation. And the word malacha is used, I'm not going to go into the details right now, it's used in a later place, someplace else in the Torah, to derive from there what it is that we can and we cannot do. Other stuff that is also called malacha, from there we learn what malacha is, what constitutes malacha, and that's what we can do on Shabbat. But then it says, Ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem et hashamayim. Because 6 days God created the heavens and the earth. Well, the word ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem et hashamayim et haaretz, that appears someplace else. And we're going to go there. That's a little bit further. It's in Parashat Ki Tisa. It's chapter 31 in the same book, in Exodus and Shemot, where God reiterates when He's giving Moshe. Moshe stayed on Mount Sinai for 40 days. And God is telling Moshe, the entire Torah actually, but here He says, V'shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbat. And the nation of Israel shall keep the Shabbat, la'asot et Shabbat, to establish the Shabbat, or to make the Shabbat, l'dorotam, for all the generations, Brit Olam, an everlasting covenant. Beni ubein b'nei Yisrael, between me and between the nation of Israel, ot hi le'olam, it is a sign forever. Ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem et hashamayim v'et haaretz, because 6 days God created, the same words, hashamayim v'et haaretz, created the heavens and the earth, uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, and on the seventh day He ceased, or He stopped and rested. So again, ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem et hashamayim v'et haaretz, this appears again over here, but the word ki can also mean for, or that, or because. So the question is, how does that prove the creation of the universe? Well, let me ask you this. Every measurement of time that we have, take a year for example, there's a scientific meaning behind that, isn't there? A year is the amount of time it takes for the earth to go around the sun. Okay? A month. What's a month? A month is the amount of time it takes for the moon to orbit the earth. A day. What is a day? The amount of time it takes for the earth to rotate on its axis, so that relative to us, it looks like the sun rises and the sun sets, it rises again. That's 1 day. That's a measurement of time. What's a week? Every culture throughout the world observes and uses the measurement of a 7-day week. But why? There is no scientific astronomical calculation that gives you a 7-day period that we call a week. Only one thing can be attributed to this week, and that is 6 days God created the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day He rested. Now let's go back and read again. It says, Ot hil olam. It is a sign forever, ki sheshet yamim, that 6 days God created the heavens and the earth, uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafesh, and on the seventh day He ceased and rested. It's not that us keeping Shabbat alone. The entire thing, you work 6 days, and on the seventh day you rest. That's a sign. Because where else does that come from? There's no other source for the concept of a week. That is a sign that 6 days God created the universe, and on the seventh day He rested. And that proves to us again, who controls nature? Who created nature? God. That's my Torah thought. What's yours? Thanks for watching. Shabbat Shalom.